Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan talking more about the Trump assassination, but this time he's talking a little bit about the kid who took the shots and the shooter, the attempted assassin, the failed assassin. But then also he's talking about the rhetoric that's been going on. And of course, he's sitting with Sam Morril. And you know when people are very left-leaning, but they're trying to hide it a little bit because they're comedians and they don't want to seem like that type of person. That's what I think Sam is. I think he's left-leaning because as soon as I hear them say, oh yeah, it's on both sides, like just right away. And even though right now it's not on both sides, like directly after the assassination attempt, it is not both sides spewing crazy rhetoric. It is one side saying completely unhinged things about Donald Trump. Everything from he deserved it to his own rhetoric is what got him here, to people just outright being like, I wish he was a real martyr instead of this fake martyr who just got grazed or hit with a bullet but survived. It's wild. So they're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to show you a clip from the All In podcast. It's a very well-measured podcast. They got some people on the left, some people on the right, some people who were for Trump, some people who were not. And they're talking about the rhetoric and they're going on to the both sides commentary as well. But two of the hosts make a great case for why it is not both sides. And it is currently just the left that is being this way. So let's get into that. And then I'm going to show you some other stuff, a little bit of Trump's speech as well, because Joe Rogan brings up how a speech can really unify people. And I think Trump accomplished that, or at least tried to, with the speech he gave at RNC. Let's go.
We could do with her.
That should be a punishment.
Well, I think
it shouldn't be. Yeah,
we're talking again about like this kid on the roof with Trump. Like, that's the kind you find someone who's all f***ed up from life, and
Can I do another with the whiskey too?
Sure. Thanks. That's a very specific kind of person. It's hard to make a total narcissist like your friend's mom, who you just tell them about someone jumping off of a fucking roof in front of you and almost killing you and splattering in front of you, and they don't even care. That doesn't have
I think she
to do with
just
me.
didn't know what to say. I don't think it was like malicious the way she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I don't think she meant bad by it. I think she just wasn't equipped to give me anything.
Some people aren't equipped to have real conversations. They just talk. They just talk and talk at you.
I know.
Yeah. But if you find someone who's really fucked up, like if you were a part of a secret program, you would probably kind of want to be going to visit schools to see if you could find someone who's on the edge.
Yeah.
Recruit them. Get them, especially if you're planning on killing them anyway. Like this, they knew that if this kid was going to go on the roof and shoot the president, they could talk him into going on the roof. Let's assume, not even this scenario, because let's not be crazy. Let's just say if you wanted to set up a scenario, we're going to have someone assassinate the president. You get some guy whose life is a fucking complete and total disaster. You either hypnotize him or you mentor him. You give him psychiatric drugs. You do a bunch of things. You get him to do it. And you know that once he gets on top of that roof and shoots the president, everyone's going to shoot him. And it's nice and clean. They never let those guys live.
My question is, though, how, of course, but my question is, do you want him actually to kill Trump in this scenario?
Yeah. They definitely wanted him to kill Trump. There was also an Iranian...
Well, don't you think, I find it a little irresponsible.
Is this his gun?
No. I was willing to you guys keep talking. No, sorry, I interrupted, but I can't find a picture of the gun.
I'm so put off when people like, Lauren Boebert and or like being like, Biden hired him to do this. And you're like, stop trying to pour gas on the fire.
Yeah.
Like,
how do you know?
We are so fucking lucky he's not dead.
So lucky.
The country, like, I believe in I part of being maybe an entertainer is like, I get to see a unified crowd. That's part of the beauty of being able to tour as a comic is like, I get to see a room of people laughing together. And I always hate when comics are like going out of their way to divide a room.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way, I mean, more so even about politicians who I'm like, why are you aiming for chaos?
Like, you really can kind of unite people if you give a good speech.
Of course.
You really can. Like, you really can inspire people and unite people with the right words.
Yeah.
And the right real feeling behind it where it really resonates with people. And they go, well, you know what? He's right. He's right. We should do it differently. We should relax a little, get our shit together. Which is really funny when after the assassination attempt, Biden It's like we have to put aside our differences. Like you
No
were just
shit.
saying he was Hitler.
I know, but also they were making a big deal that Biden called Trump and that he was like, "There's no place for this." I'm like, "Murder? Yeah.
Yeah.
We shouldn't. There should not be place for assassinating people."
There also should be no place for you using so much hyperbolic statements that you're saying that your opponent, if they win, it's the death of democracy. Because they kept saying that over and over
Both
again. He's
sides
going to
do
be a
that.
dictator. Yeah, they all do that.
Both sides
He's
do
going to
that.
be a dictator. He's going to be a tyrant. It's the death of democracy. He's going to put people in camps.
It all started when we started comparing every politician to Hitler because it gave us nowhere to go.
Right.
Here's the problem: like every cable news show, they thrive the way politicians are trying to thrive now. It's like chaos. It's like you are poisoning every audience member who watches this. Shit. Cable news is literally they're pouring poison down your throat.
And the way they're set up, they kind of have to do that because otherwise they're not going to survive.
They were when Trump was out of office, they were dipping like a motherfucker.
Huge dip.
Huge dip.
Huge dip.
Because he was giving them content.
Yeah. The fear content.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a good time for being informed. It's a very confusing time in terms of like understanding exactly what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
It's real weird.
Yeah.
It's just weird, real weird. You don't know what the is happening. There's no official reports of things, and there's so many different things that are popping off. There's so much going on in Ukraine and in Israel, and it's like, what's going on in America? And somebody just tried to kill the president, and like, you see how
I couldn't believe that. I was like, this can't be fucking. When did the world turn into the World Wrestling Federation?
I was in Italy.
All of it.
I was in Italy when it was going on.
With the Trump
Cop
thing?
went on the roof.
Yeah, cop went on the roof. He pointed a gun at the cop, and the cop jumped off the roof.
Fucking crazy.
You never see that in like an Eastwood movie.
Yeah, the cop was like, I'm
jumping
getting
up
out
and
of
going,
here.
"F this
It says
shit."
he fired 8 times at Trump.
Really?
This then also says his father reported it missing later that
With his
night.
rifle. Yeah, the father made a phone
Did
call.
he give him so I know it was a
have,
dad's
or
gun.
took
We don't.
it.
Do they know if it was a gift or if it was he borrowed it or stole it?
It says the son missing along with his rifle, so that was his
It was
son's
stolen
rifle.
then.
No, it says, well, it's hard to say what he's saying there because it could be saying the son was missing with his rifle, but it could be saying the son was missing with his son's rifle. See how it says it? Crook's father reports his son missing along with his rifle. Like that could either be interpreted as Crook's father's rifle or the kid's rifle, right? Am I wrong?
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. There were over a dozen firearms found in the Crook's household. So there was a lot of guns in the house.
How would you like to have that be your fucking kid?
Just
Oh, my God.
They used DNA to identify him.
Well, you could use a photo. I saw his face.
Yeah.
But no, they said that FBI used DNA to figure it out.
Oh,
and
to
they're
make
not,
sure it's
they're
him?
not giving date or any explanation on exactly how they did that. And people are like thinking
How they ran a DNA test?
They might have used like DNA.com or Ancestry.com or something like that.
Oh, they
to
definitely probably
cross-reference.
use those fucking things. All those databases, we're all compromised.
I shouldn't have done it.
I should have done it too.
You did it too?
Yeah, I did it.
Why'd we do it?
Well,
a
because
girl,
I
a
was
drunk girl in a bar
interested.
convinced me to do it, and I was like,
Why would you do that? I've made an episode about that. And people in the comments were like, well, some people want to know. Hey, man, don't give your DNA to the government. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's crazy. When there's a criminal and he has a lawyer, and then the justice system's like, we need his DNA. The lawyer's like, no. That's what they do with criminals. Don't just give people your DNA, guys. I'm sorry. You want to know great-great-grandpa. He's dead. You're not going to find him. Don't worry. He's not at the corner store. Don't worry. He's not in Michigan somewhere. Don't worry. Okay? I'm just saying, hire a historian or something. Then they could take all the maiden names in your family and they can figure out some stuff. Just do that. Crazy. Giving DNA. I can't believe Joe Rogan did that. If anyone could hire a historian, it's Joe Rogan. He could literally hire a historian and have the historian fly him to every part of the world where his family's from. Come on. Absolutely ridiculous. Could show him his family crest, I bet. Anyway, let's get into this. This guy, this Sam guy, he has suggested throughout this podcast 3 times, and he uses his uncle as a shield. He's like, my uncle's convinced none of this is real. And then he says, while Joe's talking, he goes, so what do they want in this scenario? They actually want to kill Trump? You think they want to kill Trump? He is of the thinking that it's not real. I know a leftist hiding when I see one. Trust me. He's suggesting this isn't real. He even brought it up again, but didn't actually say it near the end. He's like, when did it become the WWF? Was it? What do you, JFK, Reagan, what are you talking about? Didn't the former Prime Minister of Japan get assassinated? Like, what are we talking about? How many times did people try to assassinate Castro? Was it like 1,300 times? You think Putin hasn't had a few? They try to assassinate world leaders. It's not WWE. This is what happens. You're in power and other people want you to go away so they can take power. That's how it works. Usually, I'm just saying. I mean, even mob bosses get assassinated. Like, come on. This guy doesn't know whether it's real or not. Anyway, let's get into this whole thing. So he suggested that it's not real. Here's the thing. This is what he said when he's like both sides. When Joe Rogan's talking about, just suggesting that Trump is Hitler. He's like, yeah, both sides do that. And this is just me. I know I've never called Biden Hitler. I've never compared him to Hitler. I've never compared anybody to Hitler. I don't do that. I don't minimize Hitler by comparing him to anybody in modern day at all, because then you minimize what actually was done by Hitler. You don't compare him to Mao or anything. I don't do that type of stuff. I have not heard anyone on the right call compare Joe Biden to that dictator. I've never heard that before. I've never heard comparisons Joe Biden to Mussolini. I've never heard comparisons Joe Biden to Castro. I've never heard that. I have compared Trudeau to Castro, but that's a whole other thing. You guys know what I mean. There's a whole little, maybe related thing. There's that whole thing. So I've made that comparison, just looking at the faces. They're similar. But other than that, I don't think anyone on the right is really calling these people on the left Hitler or Nazis. That's why so many people who are conservative heard Jordan Peterson calling people Nazis on Twitter, and they were all taken back because they're like, hold on a second. This guy's been telling us for years not to make that comparison with anybody in modern day. And then he gets trolled by a bunch of people and he starts calling them Nazi rat trolls. We were like, whoa, what's going on here? So that's just not true. It's not both sides doing that. But again, let's hear another conversation where they are talking about both sides. These gentlemen on all sides of this make some compelling arguments. This gentleman is not for Trump that you see on the screen. Meanwhile, two of his co-hosts are for Trump. So they make a good argument going back and forth, and it's very civil. That's why I wanted you guys to hear it. Let's make sure it's not on super speed. No, it's normal. Let's go.
And I guess now it's time to talk about rhetoric. And I think that's actually, from my perspective, the next thing that has to happen here in terms of leadership. When something this tragic happens, everybody's looking at the other side's rhetoric here, whether it's putting Trump on a magazine cover as Hitler, or they're saying you got to fight like hell, or the Oath Keepers and all this January 6th nonsense and beating up cops. I think we have to put both of these things aside, and the leadership, Trump and Biden, should be saying right now that, and leadership does start at the top, this rhetoric is not to be done anymore. People have to tone things down. You could be passionate about politics, but using violent language, there are sick people in the world. And this kid, I think it will ultimately turn out like all the other assassins we've seen, or these celebrity killings that occur, John Lennon, et cetera. It's usually a mentally ill person. Likely what happened here, we don't know yet. They interpret violent language differently than a normal person. So we could say fight like hell, or target, or, you got to fight for your country, whatever it is, and we would take it a certain way. Sick people take it a different way, and they need to put out a joint statement and just say, anybody on our teams who uses violent rhetoric is no longer on our teams, and they haven't done that. So I think there's more work to be done here in terms of leadership.
I think it's more precise than that. I think it's way more precise than this. I don't think that this is years of Donald Trump using violent rhetoric. I think this is years of No, I don't. You cannot both sides this. I think this is years.
Of course you can. I just gave you examples of it.
I think what it is that we have gone through years and years of literally the words that the former president has said being perverted and misconstrued and chopped up into sound bites that advance a mainstream media's agenda to try to vilify a person. And I think that that's an important thing to take a step back I think we have to understand that the mainstream media has really gone out of their way to amplify violent rhetoric and to actually associate violent rhetoric with as a tolerable reaction. And I think that that is the thing that we need to now completely get rid of in our society. I saw so many reactions to the former and probably future president of the United States getting shot, which was along the lines of basically hoping that that person hadn't missed and or justifying that violence on Donald Trump was somehow justified. That's insane. Now, that person could only have gotten that idea because the media fed them that language and that idea. And I think that that's extremely scary because I don't think you actually see Republicans necessarily saying that about Joe Biden. They may think that Joe Biden is feeble and mentally incompetent, but nobody's calling for the death of Joe Biden. So I think that that's a very scary place where you have one group of people who are being fed this extremely toxic narrative. And I think that that part of what you're saying, Jason, I agree with. But I really disagree with the other part, which is, and this is someone, again, as someone who was a former Democrat, I can observe this and be relatively rational here. I don't see that from the other side.
Okay, well, the media is reflecting what is said by both candidates at both sides, and they both use very targeted language. I'll put a couple of links in the show notes of both sides doing this, and you can make your own decision as the audience. But I do think leadership would be both of them saying, stop this violent language. And both sides do it.
I'd like to address that too.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Just days before the shooting, Peter Thiel and Reid Hoffman had an exchange at Allen and Company that was publicly reported, in which Peter said that Reid had turned Trump into a martyr by funding lawfare. And Reid responded, I wish I had turned him into an actual martyr. Okay. That's wishing for someone's death. When the news of the assassination attempt came online, I don't think it was Jack Black himself, but a member of his band said that it's too bad the shot missed. There are other people on the Democrat side who expressed similar sentiments. They were disappointed that the assassination attempt had failed. Now, I don't think those people are mainstream political leaders. So
yeah, that's just the distinction I wanted to make here. Like, there's no political leader who said that.
I'm not going to try and hang that around Joe Biden. However, Biden himself, days before the shooting, said that it was time to put Trump in the bullseye. That's what he said. And his defense for that rhetoric was, well, I didn't say crosshairs. Well, I think bullseye means the same thing. Now, even that, I'm willing to basically forgive because I don't think Biden meant it in a literal sense. I think he was speaking rhetorically about, say, campaign ads, things like that. I wouldn't necessarily say that was violent rhetoric, okay? I'm not going to try and pin that on President Biden. But the thing I do think was unacceptable by President Biden and the Democrats is the level of demonization and the level of vitriol that they have pursued against President Trump, not as a one-off statement, but as a campaign strategy. Again, they have said over and over again, this man is Hitler, this man is a fascist, this man is a threat to democracy. If he wins, it is the end of democracy. They have repeatedly gone there and repeatedly they've tried to Hitlerize him. Now, if you're saying that this man is Hitler, where else is there to go rhetorically? That's the worst thing you could ever say about somebody. And quite frankly, if he is Hitler, why would you be offering him thoughts and prayers after he gets shot? I mean, wouldn't it be a good thing to shoot Hitler? And so I do think that, if we think about the contribution of political rhetoric to what could have happened here, I'm not going to try and blame anybody for these one-off poor choices of language that could be interpreted as violent. What I will blame them for is taking the demonization up to 11, taking the vitriol up to 11, because that could poison the mind of someone who's already mentally disturbed and say, okay, well, wait a second. If he is Hitler, why wouldn't I be Colonel von Stauffenberg for assassinating him? Wouldn't I be a hero for trying to eliminate this man? And that's the thing that I think is really unacceptable. And I do think the Democrats should be blamed for that because, again, they made it a campaign strategy. Their entire argument against Donald Trump is not about issues. It's about this man being Hitler. And I think it's ridiculous. It's inflated. It's hyperbole, to be sure. And I think that we don't know yet about the mind of this shooter, this Crooks, but if anything contributed to the shooting, it was that.
JD Vance.
Definitely. Definitely. Again, these guys are very well measured. They're all friends. You know, they don't all have the same view politically, but they do keep it very civil between each other, and they do make some good points. Now, the guy who is not for Trump, this gentleman, him saying that both sides should kind of speak about, hey, we don't want this violent rhetoric, and if you use that violent rhetoric, you're not on the team. I do think that would be good for both sides to do, regardless of which side is doing it more. And, you know, you already know from listening to this video, I think it's the left. I think if both sides did that, that would be quite good. I would love to see that. I would love to see that. But let me just get to this clip. This gentleman here, again, he said that he's going to provide proof that both sides do it in the show notes. And I went through all of these notes. I went through every single one of these links. He does not provide proof. There's no proof of both sides doing this type of thing, because that would be very hard to do. You have to understand, when these two are bringing up the conversation of media doing this, there isn't that. What is really conservative media? It's Fox News. I mean, there's Breitbart News, right? But Fox News is the real big one. Fox News has to compete with the CNN, ABC, PBS, CBS. You know, they have to compete with all of that. It's just Fox News, really. So when we talk about the media and saying that both sides do it, it's like, Fox News doesn't do that. Fox News does not allow, well, I shouldn't say allow. Maybe they just don't have the viewpoints. Maybe they just know it doesn't work with their demographic of people, but they don't compare Joe Biden to Hitler. They don't do that. They don't compare these Democrat politicians to Hitler. Now, things that you will hear, and you've definitely heard them from me, compare them to socialists, communists, Marxists, and where those societies go is a terrible place. I'll say things like that. I'll definitely say things like that. 100%. You know, when I hear about American communists, I don't like that, right? But I don't compare them to Hitler. I don't do that. I talk about Stalin in comparison to what they're talking about. I'll be like, well, Stalin did this. They're a secret police, you know, but I'm not calling them that. I'll use it as a point when I see one of them like celebrating Lenin's birthday and celebrating the man. I'll be like, look at this. What's going on? Why are these people doing that? But I won't sit there and compare them to Hitler. And then another point that he made when he was talking about the media, this gentleman here, he said the media is just a reflection of what both parties say. That's not true. Okay? And if you've watched this channel long enough, you'll understand the media does not reflect anymore. It used to. The media used to reflect the questions and concerns of the public, and then they would turn that over and they become the megaphone for the public, and they would ask those questions to authority. But at some point it changed around and they started reflecting what the authority wanted, and they would turn around and be a megaphone pointed at us, yelling things. So the media doesn't reflect. The media molds. They mold reality. They mold what people think about politicians. So when we talk about Trump being Hitler, they're molding that reality. There's nothing about him that's even close to it. But it's been pushed so much that even the most centrist person, if you said, well, there are some comparisons to fascism and Hitler, they might be like, yeah, okay, I see what you mean. But there's none. Not the mean tweets, not how he feels about immigrants, not what he's done policy-wise. There's nothing about him that's even close to that. Not even a little bit. It's true. Look into the things that he says. He might say some mean things. But it's nowhere close to what those dictators did back in the day. Again, he didn't provide any proof. Media reflects. Oh, and the fact that this person and these people, they all get these ideas from the media. this person, by which I mean the shooter, he got this idea from the media. There's no way that he sat there and actually read through Trump's policies. Actually, anytime the media told him something, he went and found the full thing himself and listened to it and came off with the idea that Trump is Hitler and a threat to democracy. At the very most, someone who doesn't like Trump, if you went and did all that, you'd be like, I don't like the guy. I don't like the way he talks. He's dismissive. He's mean. He's like a politician. That's the most that you can come off with if you really, really dig into Donald Trump and what he has to say. And the media has been bending and twisting Trump's words. So to sit there and say that he has all of this rhetoric that is so violent, all of it gets, I mean, we saw this with the bloodbath comment. It got twisted and molded. One of Joe's guests even said, he's like, no, I think he actually meant a bloodbath in the streets. It's like, are you an adult? What are you talking about? And then I played a compilation of just every media person talking about a bloodbath and using it in the financial sense and in the political sense. And then I even gave people an example which people fought in the comments, that sometimes when you're investing and everything goes red because everything's down, because you're in a bear market, it's called a bloodbath. Because you turn on your chart to see all your stuff and everything's red. So it's called a bloodbath. And when everything's good, it turns green. Oh, man. Anyway, that was all the points from that. And then I just want to touch on what Joe said about the BlackRock commercial. And then when he brought up the whole thing about possibly recruiting people. Now, I'm on record saying, listen, that whole BlackRock commercial thing, that's nothing. But since Joe brought up that recruiting thing, I got my tinfoil Speedo on right now. What if they were giving tribute to that teacher and they were just looking at each kid, talking to him a little bit here and there, and they were like, that's the one. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm willing to look at things. Maybe it wasn't nothing. I don't know. It's very interesting. Anyways, the last thing I'll say really quick. I think I'm going to jump over the Trump speech. I'll play a little bit of that. But the last thing I'll say is, why didn't Joe talk about being in Italy? Why didn't do you understand what happened with Italy? Trump said that Dana White said, I was on the way to Italy when I got the news of what happened to Trump. Okay? Joe Rogan just said in that clip that he was in Italy when it happened. Trump in his speech says Dana White said he was in Italy and he promised his wife he would be doing this for years and that he can't come and give the speech at the RNC. And then Dana White decided to go. Why didn't Joe Rogan say, hey, I was in Italy, Dana White got the call, and Dana White had to leave? Why didn't he say that? I was right next to Dana when Trump called him. Why didn't he say that? Believe me, I'm not going to play the whole game of maybe they weren't in the same place, Italy. They're near best friends, and they were in Italy at the same time. Get out of here. Obviously, they were hanging out together. Let's hear a little bit about Trump's speech when they talk about... Let's go to the uniting part instead. Joe talking about uniting people through a speech. I think Trump tried to do that. I don't know if he accomplished it, because you'd have to see what the other side has to say and how people are feeling. But I think he was trying to do that.
They're going to be doing very well. They're warriors. So now I ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of our friend Corey. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for others. This is the spirit that forged America in her darkest hours, and this is the love that will lead America back to the summit of human achievement, and greatness. This is what we need. Despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. I am more determined than ever, and so are you. So is everybody in this room. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our resolve is unbroken and our purpose is unchanged to deliver a government that serves the American people better than ever before. Nothing will stop me in this mission because our vision is righteous and our cause is pure. No matter what obstacle comes our way, we will not break, we will not bend, we will not back down, and I will never stop fighting for you, your family, and our magnificent country. Never. And everything I have to give with all of the energy and fight in my heart and soul, I pledge to our nation tonight. Thank you very much. I pledge that to our nation. We're going to turn our nation around, and we're going to do it very quickly. Thank you. This election should be about the issues facing our country and how to make America successful, safe, free, and great again. In an age when our politics too often divide us, now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So there was a lot of that type of stuff, you know. He was trying to be quite unifying, and he even said within this speech, and it's an hour and a half, so I can't play too much of it, but he even says, I'm not going to be the president to half the country, you know, which is him saying to his supporters, I'm not just going to be the president for you guys, I'm going to be the president for the other side as well. So he definitely, and he didn't jab into the left, because he could have easily given this speech and just been like, radical left lunatics did this to me. Their rhetoric did this, and when they did this to you. He could have easily just said that. And everybody would have been like, yep, let's go. Let's get angrier than ever. But he chose not to do that. I found it pretty interesting, you know? Very unifying message that he had. I want to see if I can find that one guy again. Did you know that there are people who are wearing the same bandage on their ear as he is? Oh, I can't find him. He was in the crowd. There are people in this crowd wearing ear bandages because they want to stand in unity with Trump. I find that crazy. I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm not going to wear, I guess I'm wearing a headphone on my ear. That might count. But he did try to unify, you know, and this is what Rachel Maddow had to say about him unifying the country.
Probably about an hour, but this came in over an hour and a half long. This was a Fidel Castro kind of experience.
Directly after the speech. Directly after the speech, she's like, this was like listening to Fidel Castro. Oh my gosh, just incredible. You know, really, really interesting stuff. You know, the last thing I'll bring you, just a little bit of a, you know, I should actually vet this content first. They're trying to, why are you playing the music? I don't want you to play the music. They're trying to say that there's possibly a second shooter, and they're showing all this stuff. Well, I haven't vet this yet, so I'm not going to show it to you guys, but that is the word on the street that, you know, they're thinking that there was a second shooter, you know, and when you go on X brings you a lot of good information, but sometimes it just brings you straight bunk. So let me just look into that before I actually show it to you guys. All in all, I do think the rhetoric from the left has been absolutely crazy. I might do a video on it. You know, Destiny said some disgusting things about the firefighter, and he said that if one of his fans was at the rally and, you know, they lost their life, they lost their life, that he would make fun of them the next day. He said that if his parents were there and something happened to them, he wouldn't feel any sympathy for them. He was just saying crazy things, and that's the embodiment of what a lot of people are doing on the left. Like I showed you before, Libs of TikTok is on a cancel culture crusade, which I do not agree with at all, but they are showing that there's a lot of people left-leaning who are saying, I wish that the shooter didn't miss. And it's disgusting, quite frankly. So anyways, guys, we're getting deep here. I just wanted to bring you this information really quick. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. It helps the channel tremendously. Other than that, I'm out.